Hello, I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and you are watching Tom Talks Rubbish. It's the place for interviews, wrestling reviews, and so much more.
You subscribe to Tom Talks Rubbish. I highly recommend you subscribe here first.
Oh, right, okay. What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Tom Talks Rubbish, and today I'm back with another interview. This time, I'm joined by, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Stephen Larson from the Guy in the Raw podcast.
Hey, what's going on, Tom? How you doing?
Hi, Tom.
I'm good. I should have said this to Steve off camera. Larson knows, because I did tell him. I'm very hungover, so...
Oh, well, yeah, that's probably, you had a good time then last night, right?
I'll tell you the story off camera.
All right, fair enough.
Fair enough. But, yeah. So, yeah. This was a bucket list interview for me, I'm not going to lie.
Oh. Well, that's cool. You already have some better names than us. You've got like half a Cultaholic already to your name, so that's a much bigger get than we are.
I disagree, but... Basically, what I want to know, guys, is how did Going in Raw start, and how did you guys meet? For those that may not know.
Eesh, boy,
well, that goes back a long ways. What, you want to start the origin story where we met? Yeah.
So we actually met in Tom. How old are you, Tom?
22.
22.
So we met before you were born.
Fair enough.
So 22. We met probably around 5 years before you were born.
Yeah.
1994,
yeah.
In chemistry class.
Physics class. It was AP
Physics class. AP Physics. And we didn't really know each other, but we had mutual friends. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up in a class, I think the next year. No, it was that year. And I became friends with one of his friends. And then once I graduated from high school, I started hanging out with those guys more, and Larson was there. And then in college, in the first semester of when I went to college, Larson was in the same astronomy class, and it was a huge class, and I didn't know anybody. And I saw him down there, and I was like, well, I know that guy, so let me go and sit next to him. And then, I feel like that's where really we bonded.
Yeah, for sure.
And we were all watching wrestling at the time. And then, we've sort of been linked at the hip ever since.
Yeah, more or less.
Was it?
Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Sorry. No. Go on, Larson.
Oh, I was going to, as far as the origins of the show, Steve and I worked together at a company called Machinima for a number of years. And in the process of working there, we had a top 10 show. And we...
10 for the win, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we had an opportunity to do a collaboration with Dan Nerdcubed. And so we got on, it was probably Skype or something. I don't remember what a program it was to talk to him. And we hit it off and started talking wrestling. We talked wrestling for basically an hour before we even did any of the work we were supposed to do. And during the course of the conversation, Steve says, "This sounds like a podcast." And Dan said, "We can call it Going in Raw." And that has stuck ever since. That was in 2014, I believe.
Yeah, it was just a joke that he said too, and I was like, "Oh yeah."
Say this. Is it in relation to the sexual act?
Yeah, it was a joke that Dan made, but the idea of the podcast originally was we'd watch a pay-per-view and we'd review the show prior to the following Raw, so it was Going in Raw, and Dan had said it as a joke, but I was so hyped to the idea, I was like, "Perfect, we'll do that," and then Dan was like, "Okay, cool. That's what we'll call it then." And then we just did it, and we didn't really think that it was going to be much of anything, and then it turned into our career.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does it go from you guys just watching, I assume, WWE pay-per-views at this time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To we're going to cover basically Raw, SmackDown, now AEW, NXT, etc.
So originally it was just the three of us, me, Larson, and Dan, that would cover pay-per-views just for fun. And at the following year, so in February of 2015, me and Larson got laid off. and we had to sort of rethink how we wanted to approach going forward. We knew that, hey, we'd be stronger together because people know us. We have an audience, so let's take advantage of that. But the thing that we had been covering primarily at Machinima and with 10 for the Win was video games, and we were both kind of burnt out on that. It's not really it was never really a passion of ours, but video games was a fun way to get our comedy across. It was a fun way to establish an audience. And so, one of our options was, hey, we've got this going in Raw thing. Dan was really helpful in bringing his audience to it. So we had an audience for that. Mm-hmm. And we had always sort of laced 10 for the Win with wrestling references. And so we knew we had an audience for that. And it turned into, hey, let's see if Dan would be cool if me and Larson did it on a weekly basis, covering Raw, which was kind of the only show at the time. Like SmackDown was a thing, but if you recall back then, SmackDown was still basically...
Was this during when basically SmackDown was the highlight show?
It was, yeah, exactly, yeah. And they would start to do Raw, SmackDown Super shows, which really was just like combining all the Raw and SmackDown people into Raw. And SmackDown would, serve as a clip show for that. And so we were like, hey, let's start covering Raw. It's the only thing that, it's a weekly thing, and we can continue to build our audience. And Dan was like, yeah, do whatever you want to do. And eventually Dan sort of got tired of wrestling, and so he bowed out. Mm-hmm. But we always had his full blessing on everything. And then so we decided to continue doing that. And then probably a year after we got laid off, we were like, hey, let's just go all in on wrestling content. Let's sort of be. I always felt that a good template was. Back then at Machinima, there was a program called Inside Gaming, which eventually became Funhouse at Rooster Teeth. And so I was like, hey, they cover games in a way that I really appreciate. They add comedy and chemistry to it. And they have daily news updates where they have that type of chemistry and comedy. And I said, hey, we just sort of figured if we're going to do this, why don't we make it a daily thing where there's the more interesting stuff in wrestling is the backstage stuff anyways. Why don't we cover
news at this time?
Yeah, so let's cover news and the programs.
Mm-hmm.
And then SmackDown became its own thing. And then,
the 2016 draft.
Now?
Yeah, the 2016 draft really established SmackDown as a show that wasn't
Black
just a
split,
clip show anymore.
Yeah, and then in 2017 is when New Japan really started to catch on. And obviously in 2018 is when we get AEW, or 2019 is AEW, but before that was All In. And so
it's sort of there, right?
Yeah, we were there for All In. We were there for the first Double or Nothing. Were we there for the first All Out also?
I don't think we went for the first All Out, no.
Okay. And so, it just, whenever anything relevant in wrestling happened, for a while we were covering 205 Live when that was kind of relevant. Mm-hmm. Obviously, NXT became a relevant thing, and now we're just sort of swamped with everything because it's Raw, SmackDown, NXT, AEW, Rampage with Dynamite, and then all the pay-per-views. And then we still keep tabs on on monthly New Japan shows.
And Impact as well.
And Impact as well, now. So
because until recently you were co-streaming with Impact, right?
Yeah. And then they took that away. We replaced that with something I think is actually a lot more fun. But we still keep tabs on Impact. Mm-hmm. Like they've established themselves as a relevant entity in pro wrestling, so there's kind of no reason not to.
Okay, so with the amount of wrestling you guys have to watch for your job, can you still watch wrestling for fun, or does work brain automatically kick in?
It depends on the week. Like last week, no, 2 weeks ago, SummerSlam weekend, where it was like we were doing live streams Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, each evening, all night or during the night. Like the following weekend, this past weekend was Empower and NWA 73, and I really wanted to watch it, but at the same time I was like, I need to decompress from wrestling for a little bit. So I just gave myself the weekend off, knowing this weekend's All Out. So you just have to pace yourself. We know what we have to watch on a weekly basis, and after that, if we have time to watch more, we will. And I still like we watch Triple Mania every year, and it's for
That's
work
the
and
one
that.
show you guys really look forward to, right?
Oh, that's the best show of the year, hands down.
It's the best, yeah.
But what
Is
part
that
of it was
in joke or is that legit?
Wait, is what now?
Is that an in joke of the podcast? It's like a
No,
it's
or is
a
that legit?
it's legitimately the most fun show of the year. Yeah.
Triple Mania incorporates everything we add. It's always the most unpredictable show.
Mm-hmm.
It throws you surprise after surprise. It is legitimately partially because we've turned into a pretty successful work thing with the live streams. You know, this year we incorporated the Church of Joshi, Alex and Kayla, and as the Church of Friendos. And that went over hugely well.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been able to turn into, but we keep in mind that, hey, this is one thing. We're not going to review it. We're not going to we'll recap it. We don't take notes. It is purely for fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that's one thing that we've maintained. But yeah, like Larson said, it's sort of just about pacing. Like, you know, if there are weeks that are slower, then I'll check out like a show that I missed, or I'll be like, oh, hey, you know, New Japan has a show on late tonight at 11 o'clock. I'll check it out and just see what's going on because I still enjoy it. And I still, for the most part, I get a lot of enjoyment out of watching the weekly shows. Still, there is an element of work to it because I'm sitting there taking notes also, and I have to pay attention to it. And sometimes you just don't want to pay attention. But no, for me, the line is pretty thin between, hey, I'm a fan of wrestling and I do this for my job. I still take great joy in watching wrestling, even if I'm doing it for my job, because it's still wrestling. It's one of those things that, you know, ever since I started watching in college, I've been like, man, I could just watch this. And, you know, and even if it's bad, it's still pretty good. I just don't want it to be boring.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So, Larson.
Yeah.
I know Steve's story, but how did you get into wrestling?
I started watching when I was a kid. I don't think this match ever happened, but for some reason in my brain, it's British Bulldogs versus the Killer Bees. I got on a cage match on Pro Fight DB. Can't find any evidence this match actually happened, but in my head, that's the first match. I was flipping through the channels. We had cable relatively early in our household growing up, and I was going through the channels. Land on USA, wrestling was on. That was my introduction to it, and then the video store we used to go to had WrestleMania 1 there. And so we'd go every weekend, rent a couple movies or whatever. And if there wasn't anything that I wanted to watch, I was like, I'll take WrestleMania 1 again. And I watched it over and over and over and over again. And then when WrestleMania 2 showed up on the shelves, I watched that one and 3 and so on. And then I kind of fell out of it in like the early mid-90s, came back during the NWO Attitude Era stuff. And so that's, you know, like the real formative wrestling watching days in terms of Steve and I happened from like 97 to probably 2001, 2002.
Okay. So if we break down how you guys do a recap, who tends to take the more detailed notes, who is researching the show, etc. out of the two of you?
I take too many notes. Always
Larson takes obsessive notes.
They're better than they used to be, though, because I used to do like a page per match almost. And now it's way less.
The breaking point for me was when we started doing NXT takeovers, like around 2018, 2019, when takeovers were like these 25-minute matches, and it was just move, and it just turned into like Larson sort of reading moves, and I was like, I don't want to do this. This isn't fun anymore. I just want to talk about like, okay, what in this match is absolutely essential to talk about. And so my notes basically at this point, it's like, okay, if the Young Bucks and the Luke,
a Patreon exclusive thing, or they used to be.
I made them public because, I made them. The Steve notes are public because Twitch stopped letting us email directly our subscribers, and there was a selling point for Patreon and Twitch subs to get exclusive access to Steve notes. But the Steve notes are now available for everybody. And, you know, sometimes they can be a mess because it's just I am taking the notes simply so that when we're talking about the match, I can recall the bits that I feel like talking about because I know I'll be the most entertaining if I'm talking about whatever interested me, as opposed to Larson's way of doing it.
Uh-oh, we lost Tom.
Hang on.
That was great.
Oh, there
You
you go.
got me again?
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. We got you.
Gotcha.
Technical difficulties, I apologize.
It happens.
So I was just saying, Larson's notes are just. I mean, it's just. I think it's his personality. Like he's just okay. Let's beat by beat, and so he can keep track of what's going
Yeah,
on.
mine tend to be.
Completist.
Mine tend to be pretty dry because I just want a log of what happened because then it jogs my memory about other stuff. If there's things that happen during the course of the show that I find funny, then I'll note them. But usually not like some sort of clever way. I just literally write what happens just to jog the memory. And so I know there's a point that we should spend some time talking about.
Okay, so if you guys were to say, like, a commentary team, what I'm picking up on is Larson would be the play-by-play guy, and Steve would be the color commentator.
Yeah, I still don't know. I don't know the names of most of the moves. So yeah, I'd be the guy thinking, oh man, what is he thinking about right now? This is not looking good for him.
You would say, what a maneuver.
Yeah, that's the extent of how my color commentary.
He'd be the Vince McMahon of going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So when putting recaps together, is it literally you watch the show, then I know some shows you review straight after, which is Dynamite and SmackDown, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And Rampage.
And Rampage.
The
Too.
Rampage,
Yeah, Rampage. Yeah, up. Unless Rampage starts becoming like a Super B show, we do live watch-alongs with Rampage, and then immediately go into the recap, and then after that we'll recap SmackDown because we'll have watched it in private before that. Yeah.
Okay. So, but obviously, and I can't say I blame you on this, but Raw and NXT you review the day after, correct?
Correct. Yeah. We decided watching 3 hours of Raw live, and then doing a recap right afterwards just wasn't it may honestly, like, just from, there's two things from a business. Well, there's three things from a business perspective. From a business perspective, the show just wasn't as entertaining. Like, it's just not when you have two guys who are already in their 40s. They're exhausted. So they're exhausted from being in their 40s. They're exhausted from watching Raw. We've had a show already in the day because we do a news brief in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And then we got to get on and try to bring some form of entertainment and chemistry. And more often than not, we're just sitting there like reading this thing and trying to get it done with, as opposed to having a fresh set of eyes the next day, a fresh brain, and rejuvenated, and being like, okay, we can sit down. If it's terrible, we can make a lot of fun of it. We can like talk crap about it. And if it's good, then we'll be even more energized to talk about it. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of difficult to tell, like, if you watch it live, if the show's good or not, because it's so long and you expect it these days to be bad. So sometimes it's difficult to give it the benefit of the doubt, where if you have a night to sleep on, or if you're watching it in a way where you can truncate the commercials, you can get rid of, you can trim the fat, you can trim the recaps. It makes the experience more enjoyable. The recap's going to be better. People are going to be more apt to listen to the show.
Yep, totally.
Yeah. So what is the show, like, there may be a different answer for both of you, but what is the show you look forward to covering the most?
On a weekly basis?
Yes.
Of late for me, it's been Dynamite. The show is not without its issues, but I think week in and week out, it's, in terms of streamlined wrestling storytelling about people and characters, they handle that the best. I would say probably thanks to the Roman Reigns story, SmackDown is second.
Steve?
It's Dynamite. I mean, it used to be NXT. I thought they went through a spell where it was on fire, and it's really, since, I mean, half of their, the roster that I like left
Has gone bye-bye.
Yeah, and a lot of a lot of names that I really enjoy in WWE showed up in AEW, Andrade, Malachi Black, and they have done a really great job, developing characters and signing people that I like. Now, obviously, CM Punk, and he's like, kind of my all-time guy.
Oh, was just going to ask you about this.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask you and then Larson, where were you were you live watching Rampage?
We did a live watch along a Rampage. Yes.
So on a scale of, and this isn't me hating that guy, that guy in the crowd, you know the one I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, sure.
To, oh, that's cool. What was your reaction, Steve?
It was in between. It was probably like a 5 and right in the middle. Only because like number one, we had anticipated it for so long, like it was out there, and so it was a surreal moment. But I have a hard time getting emotion. I'll put it this way. I actually got more emotional and legitimately emotional when Fuego got a contract in the middle of the ring.
Yeah.
Because number one,
you didn't know it was coming.
Well, I didn't know it was coming, but also and this might sound cynical, but it's like, I know Phil's getting paid a ton of money. And as much as I love CM Punk in the ring and on TV,
he's kind of a salty dude.
I think you just said he's kind of a salty dude. Oh, did we lose him? I think we lost Tom again.
Yeah. Oh no.
I think we get you back. Okay, we get you back. Did you call him salty?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, man. I think I don't know. I've just there's been too much stuff out there that just precludes me from getting really emotional about the man coming back, And I think it's great. I'm hugely excited for it as a fan, but my honest emotional, but my heart is more with a guy who's busted his ass to get probably some sort of minimum contract from AEW, where he doesn't have to worry about, okay, well, how much am I going to make today or tomorrow?
Yeah.
Fuego has busted his butt, and to get that contract from his best friend, I love seeing that kind of stuff, as opposed to a guy who's probably raking in a couple million to come in, and everybody's going to fawn over him. And meanwhile, I'm thinking to myself, and I hate thinking this, but it's like I'm thinking to myself, I hope
does he want to be there, or does he just
No, I think he wants to be there, but I think to myself, I hope him and Colt Cabana are cool, And it's like, because like we've met Colt, we've interviewed Colt, and he's a sweetheart. He's a super sweetheart. So
he's a really nice dude.
To hear what happened between them is a bummer. It's a bummer. And I just from the standpoint of a guy who, I hate awkward situations and I want people to be happy around each other. That whole situation kind of bums me out because I hope that they're cool, and that's what goes through my head,
No, I get you.
That's just me being completely honest, the interpersonal, these are all human beings.
Yep.
And that's the main thing. And so I thought it was awesome when he came back, but I wasn't going to cry over CM Punk. I'd prefer to cry over Fuego, or even when Ilya won the UK title from Walter, because that was such a beautiful story told.
Oh, that's a really good match. That's a really good match.
It's my favorite match of the year so far. Oh, I love that match.
It's my job this weekend. Like, interviews and everything have just taken up time. Do you know what I mean?
Good, yeah.
Like, so, and no disrespect, where I've been talking to people about wrestling, I've had moments of, I now don't want to sit and watch wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
So, hopefully this weekend, unless I decide to cover all out for my channel.
Mm-hmm. You should. Your channel's doing good so far, man.
It's going to be a huge show, too.
Yeah.
We'll see. Like, I don't know yet. So when putting recaps together, we've talked about note-taking and stuff, but, like, I'm trying to think, like, how much of the enjoyment and goodness of the show, if a show's good, do you think your review's better, or are you better when it's a train wreck of a show?
It's somewhat. I mean, if it's either end of the spectrum, either good or a train wreck, the show will be better because there's more to talk about. And if it's good,
Or
there's
if
more
it's
to
just a
celebrate.
boring
If it's
show, then.
if it's a boring show or somewhere in the middle or a mediocre show or a show like your average episode of Raw where not much happens, we really have to find stuff to talk about. Whereas if the show's good, wow, plenty to talk about. If the show's bad, plenty to laugh about. But if it's kind of middle of the road, mediocre show, boring show, we really have to pull something, a hook, out of the show to try to grab people. And that's harder to do when, as opposed to a good or bad show where there's immediate things to talk about.
Steve, same for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. I think that it's difficult it's pulling teeth when they give you something, I mean, it's literally like talking about nothing. It's like, okay, well, this happened. It already happened last week. This happened. We've already seen this before. If there's nothing new to talk about, then it's going to make for not as entertaining a show. And the unfortunate thing is when you have to make the show about something that isn't the product that you're talking about. So, like, you know, oftentimes if it's a boring episode of Raw, Larson and I will go off on a tangent just to have conversation.
Yeah.
Oh, I love your tangents, by the way.
and that's great, but it's like from a business standpoint, I'd much rather, you know, have an exciting thumbnail, exciting something to talk about. So yeah.
Speaking of tangents, there's a story I've always wanted to know. Don't think Larson will be willing to tell it. The time you got 86 from a bar without stepping in it.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Okay. So I won't name the bar. But
It's probably a good idea that we learned that lesson finally, huh?
yeah.
Have you named it in a previous recap then?
No. This predates this. It was an episode of 10 for the Win that went down. So basically what happened was we did, you know, back in the 10 for the Win days, we would shoot intros, like
live action stuff,
sketches. Yeah, live action sketches.
Yeah.
And one of the episodes,
you did do when you bought 10 for the Win back, right?
yeah, we did it for a little while. Yeah, we did it for a little while.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. One of the skits involved us going from location to location in our town, and I forget what the general premise was, but we had, you know, sort of given a shout out to a local bar and said, you know, this is where the ruffians hang out and the bad people show up. And
no, I see where this is going.
And somehow, some way, this little dive bar, the management, the owner of the place, caught wind that we had put this out. I mean, our episodes did pretty well back then. Like 10 for the Win was a show that, like, if it didn't get 100,000 views in the first 24 hours, it was a failure. And so you know, I mean, it wasn't shocking that somebody caught wind of it. But somebody caught wind of it. They sent us an email, and we told Machinima, we were like, hey, you know, this is a bad idea on our part. And they said, don't worry about it. We'll just take the episode down. And so yeah, you know, we don't look that much different than we did back then. If it's the same management, they might remember our faces. So I've never set foot in that place.
It might be a situation like where you go somewhere, if you went somewhere, wrote a bad check where they'd say, don't let this person in. They might even have a picture of you.
It could
that
very
might
well
be the situation.
No.
This particular place.
As
Who knows?
someone that has a hangover because he went to a bar last night.
yeah. But yeah, that was a good lesson to learn early.
Yeah, it definitely was.
So have you had anything else like that where you've said something in a video and thought, maybe I need to take that down?
Probably.
I'm looking at you, Steve.
It's possible, but we've produced so much content over the years that any incidents like that, I honestly can't remember off the top of my head.
Fair
yeah,
enough.
same. Yeah, I mean, we were doing the top 10 show. We did 700-800 episodes.
Yeah, we did
probably.
I'm sorry. What now?
Yeah, we did about 700 or 800 top 10 lists during our time at Machinima.
Was this for video games?
Video games and pop culture stuff.
Yeah.
Movie,
Okay.
TV, so on and so forth. So we, you know, for a good stretch, we were doing at least 2 of them a week. Sometimes 3, I think. So we did a lot.
Fair enough. So you two are also the current. Are you still the current Quizzlemania Tag Team Champions?
We are, yes.
For at least another about 5 days, because we're going to defend them coming up on Wednesday.
Yep.
Are you now?
Yeah.
So you may have lost them by the time this goes out.
Well, hopefully not.
If this goes up after Wednesday, it is at least possible.
It's not
Yes.
out till October, my friend.
Okay, then it is very possible we are the former Quizzlemania
Entirely
Tag Team
possible.
champions.
Yeah, entirely possible.
So how did all that collaboration stuff come about for you? Because one of the things that I love from your channel is Matt Chat every month.
I got bad news. We're canceling Matt Chat. It's become sort of like it's a bit too difficult to sort of produce that on a monthly basis. Networking and communicating with other people is not our strong suit.
Preach.
So just because there's so much stuff to cover these days.
Yeah.
To add onto it, collaborating in that manner on a monthly basis where it has to be scheduled is just not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that Quizlemania stuff happened. Just Blampy had reached out to us. I mean, we'd known him for a while, since back when he was in What Culture.
Yeah.
And he reached out to us and said, "Hey, do you I think at first it was individual.
I think I was on. Was I on first, or were you on first?
I think
it was
I think you
individually.
were on first.
Yeah, it was
Larson
individually at
was.
first.
Yeah,
I already
and
know
then
this because
yeah.
I've watched that episode.
Okay, and then I was on after that, and then they started doing the tag team stuff, so we did that, and then we did the tag team thing again, and that's when we
Didn't
won.
your episode, Steve, involve a picture saying Heidenreich sex?
Heidenreich sex. That was and
you
I
had to
have no
draw that
idea
one,
how I didn't draw that. Somebody Pete drew it, I think.
Gotcha.
And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I guessed it. Yeah.
FYI, he's been on my channel recently.
Oh yeah, Pete's great. Smooth Pete is awesome.
Yeah, he is awesome.
That was awesome. So do you guys enjoy collaborating though?
Yeah.
We do. We 100% do. It's always great to sort of, break out of the routine. And we'd love to do it more. It's just a matter of time goes by so quick, I mean, with all the additional shows that have been loaded up over the years, it's obviously a full-time plus job on a slow week. It's a full-time job. On a busy week, it's much more. So finding time to do that is not always easy. And it's funny because everybody we've reached out to collaborate has always been very receptive. So we're probably foolish not to do more. But the bottom line is it's difficult to find time when you get into a certain routine.
Yeah.
No, I get you. So if we were to break down your weekly routine, what videos are you putting out on a weekly basis?
So Monday we have our extended, we call it our news beef. It's essentially our news video plus a mailbag section at the end to get it to a podcast length
I
show.
feel like I've submitted to that mailbag a few times.
That sounds right. So that's Monday, and then Tuesday at noon will be our Raw recap, noon Pacific, and then that afternoon for our patrons, YouTube channel members, and Twitch subs, we do a half-hour bonus show called Power Rank, where, kind of a throwback to our top 10 days, we do lists. And then Wednesday at noon again is our NXT recap, and then in the evening will be Dynamite. Thursday, we do a watch-along stream for NXT UK. Follow that up with a news video. And then Thursday afternoon, we do Numbers Don't Lie, which is where we use our mathematical formula to determine scores for wrestlers.
This is all Patreon content, right?
Numbers Don't Lie is, yes.
Yeah.
And then Thursday evening, we used to do the Impact co-stream since they moved over from Twitch to YouTube. We don't do that anymore. We have a show called Smash Zone, where it's just us watching a bunch of stuff and laughing about it. And then Friday at 3 o'clock Pacific, again for patrons, YouTube channel members, and Twitch subs, we play some Grand Theft Auto 5 for about an hour. And then Friday night, we'll watch SmackDown individually. We'll reconvene on Twitch at 7 to watch Rampage, and right after that we'll do a Rampage recap and then our SmackDown recap. And that's just a normal week. And if there's like SummerSlam weekend, of course Saturday we did SummerSlam, Sunday we did TakeOver as well.
So, we've been going for 45 minutes, and I want to be respectful of your time, gents. So, I'll do a few wrap-up questions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
How long did it take for your on-camera chemistry to become apparent?
Oh man, I mean, Larson and I think have always had a really good chemistry. Having known each other for 15 years before we became, a professional outfit, obviously went a long way towards helping our on-camera chemistry.
Yeah.
But it seemed pretty obvious, especially given our personalities, that, we have very dissimilar, sort of screen presences. And I think that helps. But like our friendship and our sense of humor is our friendship is obviously very strong, and our sense of humor is very similar. Like, we know what makes each other laugh. We have a dynamic that we've built through a genuine friendship. And so, when you put that on camera, it's difficult to replicate. I mean, that's one thing that I can firmly say that Going In Raw has better than anybody else.
I was just about to ask you that question. What do you think makes Going In Raw different from the other podcasts or YouTube wrestling channels that are out there?
I think it's a variety of things, but I think first and foremost, it's our friendship. It's you can tell. It's like, no, we're not trying to be nice to each other. Like we're obviously very respectful of each other because we respect each other. But like, sometimes we'll snipe at each other a little bit, and it doesn't matter because we're friends and we know that's just our moods at the time. We understand when each other might be grumpy, and we're cool that we just roll with it. And so that's chemistry. And I'll be honest with you, like I can find all my favorite, there are so many great podcasts out there, and I can pick and choose the strengths of each one. Nobody does what we do the way we do it. Nobody can, because they haven't been alive as long as us and have known each other for as long as us, because we're old and we go back to high school.
Yep.
And I think on top of that, Larson and I come from like storytelling wise, like we also have a very similar and understanding of our storytelling perspectives. Like we both went to film school together, and we both we both love talking about movies, and storytelling is the thing that draws us into pro wrestling.
1000%. And
I honestly believe, and this is just me having confidence in our product, nobody critiques the product the way we do.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, go ahead, Steve.
And I'm very confident in that. And I think if you mix all that stuff along with the comedy, I think we've got a product that is unlike anybody else's.
Yeah, I think the looking at it predominantly, like I can say like my notes are predominantly a list of moves, and it was especially early on. But now I've kind of tailored that to what moves enhance the story of the match that I'm watching. And I think whenever we start a recap, we kind of look at it from the like a macrocosm. What is going on in this show from a storyline perspective that interests us? Yeah, in a nutshell, that interests us, that isn't working.
I'm such a fanboy, and I apologize for that.
And I think for us, the storytelling aspect of pro wrestling is such a unique platform through which to tell stories. And like apart from maybe dance, and then who made it's Bret Hart made the figure skating analogy. But I think dance might be more appropriate in that you watch someone do a dance routine, and they're trying to bring out emotions from the viewers through movement alone. And pro wrestling at its best can do that. You can watch a match between two guys who are doing a choreographed fight, and if they do it really well, and the story they're telling in the ring is really involving, they have people in the palm of their hand getting an emotional response from something that everybody in that crowd knows is predetermined. And they're reacting almost as if they're watching like a real fight. And it's something else. And I can't really think of any other storytelling medium that does that. And I think from the very beginning, that's been the one thing about pro wrestling that's really fascinated me, is how the magic behind that,
Yeah. Because I'm the same. I said this in a podcast that I was on recently. If a match, I don't know the story, or it's like a story I'm not invested in, I can appreciate the nuance of the moves, etc. But I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. I don't get as much enjoyment out of the match.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. You can appreciate the athleticism of the performers, and maybe the there might be some clever ways they put sequences together or whatnot. But yeah, if you could be into it from that perspective, but if the story's not as involving as it could be, you can't make the same connection you could with you could have an example, Cody Rhodes versus Dustin at the first Double or Nothing. If you look at the moves they do, it's very basic. That match is all about the emotion.
In AEW history, I think.
It's a really good match. It's a really good
match, yeah.
But from a move perspective, it's really simple.
Yeah, but the story is there.
The story's great.
So I have a question for you guys. I've got some sappy questions, and then I've got some fun questions. What would you prefer to wrap up with?
Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, take a pick. Flip a coin.
Do one of each.
All right, let's start with the sap. We'll do the sappy ones first of all.
Okay.
Where do you guys think you'd be if you never met or without each other?
What's your stock answer, Steve?
Oh, I'd probably be working at Target. Isn't that right?
Yeah, you work at the Target, and I'd work at the
And
Starbucks beside the
as
Target.
well.
Yes, that's what we'd always say.
Yeah. I think I'd probably, I don't know, like I'd probably working in local TV, I'd imagine. Maybe.
Probably. Yeah, I might have gone back to school and done something completely different. You know,
maybe
who
be
knows?
teaching. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
really hard
maybe.
to- like the thing is, we met when we were like, I was like 16 years old or whatever. So it's hard to imagine. It's just hard to imagine like what my path would have possibly been like.
We've
without
known each
having
other
met him.
more than half our lives, so it's
Yeah.
it's kind of and been working together about a quarter of our lives, so it's kind of hard
Yeah.
to imagine, our lives
If
not being
going in-
intertwined.
Okay. Like, if Larson came to you, Steve, or vice versa one day and said, look, I don't want to do this no more, would you wrap it up or would you continue without him? Or vice versa?
It'd be a conversation. It's one of those things where going in Raw is Steven Larson and Steven Larson is going in Raw. And so if there was a way, and the thing you don't want to do is have a product where no matter what you do, everybody's just, half your comments are, I wish it was the old way. That's having done YouTube for that long, I know that is not what you want. At the same time, from a business perspective, you want to keep on making your nut. And so we would probably, regardless if it was me leaving or Larson leaving, we would probably try to find a way to help the person who is going to stick with it transition into like maybe some sort of new branding. Because the brand is kind of the thing. Like, if Larson, if I was like, hey, I just, won the lottery and I really hate wrestling now. All of a sudden I hate wrestling and I won the lottery.
Would you be like that out of curiosity?
Who, me?
No.
I wouldn't hate
If
wrestling,
you had
but
the financial means not to do the show, would you?
I don't know. I don't know, because like, if all of a sudden you're a millionaire, I don't know. I don't like that, because I don't know, ever since like I graduated college, first I was trying to publish comics. I like building things. I like the satisfaction, which you can't get just from having a large bank account. I like the satisfaction of having of creating stuff. Now, it's possible that if we were both millionaires and we both won the lottery, maybe we would talk about, hey, I could do this on like a weekly basis.
this is what it would be. This would be every show would be like how we covered Triple Mania.
Yeah.
Something
I
like
can
that.
see you guys still doing the doing the presenting side, but being like, I'm going to hire editors to do all the fun stuff that I don't.
That's a
do all the stuff that
possibility
I
as
don't
well.
like.
Yeah, I mean, we might just make it easier on ourselves. I mean, it might be the thing, like if Larson all of a sudden had $3 million in his bank account and he was like, look, dude, I just want to travel. I'd say, okay, tell the people that on camera.
Yeah.
Give, I'll get, one of the people that, the enforcer or somebody else. And I'd say, going in Raw is now going to be Wrestle Juice. That's my side gig, and that'll just be my main gig. And I think that would probably be a decent enough way to sort of kick, reinvigorate, a new journey. But I don't know. I mean, winning the lottery is kind of not something that I'm planning on.
Well,
so.
yeah, this is kind of
It
a
was a
long shot.
hypothetical question.
I mean, I guess Steve decided that he didn't want to do it anymore, and I would respect that. For me, going in Raw is the both of us, and if it's not the both of us, I don't feel like going in Raw can exist.
This is what I'm curious about now.
Okay.
Do you struggle with, like, say there was a while that Steve went to Scotland,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
And you had to do solo videos, correct?
We shot a week's worth of content in advance, and then for the other 2 weeks, we had a friend of ours, Cal Jack, who was a
by the
wrestler.
way, hopefully, I might be getting an interview with him soon.
Oh, cool.
he's great.
Cal's awesome.
He's awesome.
Cal's the
Yeah.
best. Cal's the
Yeah.
best.
We've had emails back and forth, but his bookings have got so busy right now
Yeah.
that hopefully it'll be happening.
Okay, yeah, hopefully he's great. So he subbed in for Steve for a couple weeks, and it was awesome. We were able to develop our own chemistry pretty quickly, and it's good to get his perspective since he is a wrestler on the aspects that we normally talk about. Because obviously, Steve, we've never wrestled, and we don't have that perspective by which to watch the show through. So it's always nice, kind of picking his brain about things in terms of how he views wrestling as a wrestler as opposed to, a fan.
Mm-hmm. So, we've talked about what would happen if, the show ever ended. Do you have a wrap-up plan for the show? How long do you want to do this for?
I'll do it until they just stop watching. Until I legitimately hope I can retire doing this. I do. I hope that it continues to grow and wrestling continues to maintain this momentum it's got right now, and the show will enable us to continue doing it until we don't want to anymore and we're able to not do it. But I don't think either of us have ever thought about stopping the show or quitting or retiring.
Yeah, I don't think either of us have
Sorry
thought about
if
stopping
these
to do
are
this,
hard
get another job now.
questions to answer.
No, the questions are fine. They're great questions. I mean, they're what you're interested in, and yeah. But no, I've never thought. I actually, when we first started doing this, when Going and Raw started doing really, really well, I told my dad. I said, I think I found the thing that I'm gonna be doing for 20 years. Because I firmly believe that. I'm like, we talk about it daily. We enjoy it. I haven't gotten tired of it. I still really get excited by wrestling, and so there's no exit plan for me.
Okay.
Same.
One question that I'm not sure if I asked, because I have very bad short-term memory. How different is your on-camera chemistry to your off-camera?
It's not terribly different.
It's not different at all. I mean, I think I probably turn up a little bit for on-camera stuff just because I don't know. I like to entertain. I enjoy making people laugh.
Do you have to do anything to turn up?
Just rest.
Yeah, that's the most important. That's one reason we stopped doing Raw Monday nights, because by the time we do the recap at 8:30 maybe, we were exhausted from having to sit through a 3-hour Raw. And sometimes you sit here for 3 hours of Raw and it's a chore to get through. You can get a headache,
Yeah, it's the worst.
It was just not a fun experience watching Raw and then doing the recap right afterwards, because we couldn't get ourselves up to do it.
I remember in an interview, somebody, I forget, this is ages ago, but somebody said that Letterman was really grumpy before the day of a show, but then as soon as the lights turn, because he's not grumpy, he's just not expending any unnecessary energy because he puts everything in front of the camera. And yeah. I kind of am the same way. I just sort of, I'm not going to say I'm grumpy or anything, and I'm still, I try to be funny when I'm off camera as well, just because I like making people laugh. But it's rest. I don't really have to do anything else. It's just rest.
Same.
Okay. So we got all the sappy questions out of the way, and I appreciate you guys being so honest. So to wrap this up, what is both of your favorite matches in wrestling, and then what's your favorite pay-per-view of all time? I think I know Larson's.
Yeah, Survivor Series 98 is my favorite. Again, from a storytelling perspective, that pay-per-view is a roller coaster from the very beginning.
Didn't you review it on the channel once?
Yeah, we've done it before.
Just fairly recently, I think.
Yeah, I think so. You think the show's going one way, and then at the end, it goes a completely other way.
As someone that didn't grow up in the Attitude Era, it's the only Attitude Era pay-per-view I really like.
Yeah. It's like a cohesive story they're telling throughout the whole show, which is kind of a rarity.
Yeah. It's the only one that I can stick on and be like, yeah, I'll put this on. It's fun.
Oh yeah, it's great. And the favorite match is probably end of an era. Triple H versus The Undertaker in Hell in a Cell. Again, because they're telling a great story. They're telling a great story in that match.
Steve?
A culmination of 4 years. It's great. I love that match.
Oh man, I don't know. I've got it's kind of like asking what my favorite movie is. I always have a couple of different answers. It's going to be one of 3 matches. It's either going to be Okada Omega 1, or it's going to be Punk versus Cena at Money in the Bank, or it might be RVD versus John Cena at One Night Stand. All three of those matches, like for various reasons, I did the atmosphere, the storylines building up to them, and then my favorite pay-per-view of all time. I mean, again, it's one of those things where it's like I don't really have a singular answer. It's either going to be like I remember being really, I remember having
You
a
should
really
do this for 10 for the win one day.
yeah. I think we probably did at some point, and I don't remember what my number one answer was. But like, I don't know. I'm a big fan of like WrestleMania 18 when it was Rock, Hogan, and Austin versus the NWO, because I just love the idea of like that was really what the invasion should have been.
Yeah.
And I think Flair Taker was there too, and that was just a really great match. Again, it's just all storyline stuff. But yeah, I don't know. But also, it could be like Triple Mania from a couple of years ago when me, Larson, and Hilton were all watching it back at the office.
Oh, that was great.
Was this the one where what's his name? Vampiro, I think.
Yeah,
that was the year prior, I think.
Music or they don't know I'm running in.
That was the year. That was, I think, the year
before.
prior.
Yeah, the one we watched with Hilton was the Blue Demon Jr., Dr. Wagner Jr. main event with the Hammer.
The Hammer, yeah. That whole experience, was just unreal. And so I like that. I like the experiences. I mean, we went to go see WrestleMania 31 a couple of weeks after we got laid off, and it was just the most needed thing. And on top of that, it was just a really great WrestleMania.
Had you not been doing the show full time at that point?
Not by WrestleMania 31. No, we started doing it just the September
that
prior.
Just tells me how long I've been watching your show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's all good. Like, no, I'll tell you off camera afterwards. What was I going to say? So, my final question that I always wrap up with is obviously because of YouTube, unfortunately, fortunately, whatever word you're going to use, we're going to live forever in some ways. So, what is one video that you recommend to people if they want to know what Going in Raw's about to watch? And then what's one that you're like, please don't watch that. That doesn't paint us in the best light.
Probably the one that doesn't paint us in well, for me anyways, it'd be the one where I said it was Bret Hart was an overrated champion. Because I kind of don't agree with that anymore.
Fair enough.
So I'd say it's that one. I think it's on our homepage, so you guys can watch it. But and Matthew's in the background, like just being incredulous. So that's probably the one I'd say. What's that? What?
Matthew from Botchamania.
Yeah, because we were on like an internet panel, internet wrestling panel.
Oh right.
And he was on that, and I was going off on Bret Hart, but I kind of don't believe that anymore. As far as like a video that I would want people for us to see, I don't know, Larson, do you have any good ideas about that?
I'm trying to think of. Okay. This isn't exactly a what you'd necessarily think, because our bread and butter, the backbone of our channel, is our recaps for pay-per-views and weekly TV. For a stretch, we were doing some video game content, WWE 2K18, 19, even back to like I think 14 and 13 maybe. So we had a story going on these shows. We were booking our own promotions, booking our own shows.
What, Fun Wrestling? And
there was Fun Wrestling and there was Steve W. Yeah. So there was a rivalry between two wrestlers we created. Steve created Mecha Santa. I created a wrestler called Top Notch Super Best. And we had their first match was Steve had Mecha Santa, who was a champion, and I couldn't create anybody that could beat him until I created Top Notch Super Best, and he won. And then for the following year, we told a story on our programming that led to their rematch. And the finish to that match actually made reference to, just kind of by happenstance, made reference to the match we had the first time. And it worked out wonderfully. Absolutely wonderfully. It was serendipitous how well it worked out.
It wasn't planned, no?
Not the finish, no. No, not the finish at all. And it's, I don't know if there's been a more satisfying moment for us in terms of doing something, putting work into it, and having it pay off, even though it was a bit of a happy accident, so well. So I'll say interdimension tension. That was the name of the show.
Tension. Yeah, that's a great answer. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're on about now. I watched that show. I love that show, by the way.
I mean, a lot of the stuff we were booking our own promotions was like it didn't do well view wise, but
it
was
fun.
A fun creative outlet for us. You know, because it goes back to our
most fun you've had.
Oh man, it's either that or watching Triple Mania. I think probably the most fun we've had is probably when we did Starcast. Mm-hmm. When we did our fan fest, when we had like we had the largest turnout for a wrestling podcast for a live show.
Where Larson was chanting AE dub and running off.
Yeah, I was running down the aisles,
and then Steve turns around and goes to him. Remember this in the morning when you're saying you're old and tired.
That sounds right.
You remember more than I do.
That could be. I remember running up and down the aisles. Yeah.
We had like 65 people packed in that little room, so it was a pretty cool moment.
Yeah, the whole weekend was
It's
great.
only because I've had to do research before we said we were going to do this. If you asked me this, if you'd asked me if I remembered that a week ago, without sounding a bit nasty, no.
I think like one of the most surreal moments that is the most memorable is when me and Larson were at Starcast. It was like the end of the last day. We were both exhausted and nobody was really coming through anymore. No fans. Like everybody had sort of done everything they were going to do. So like we weren't getting any traffic. And then Stone Cold ET comes over and he's just like wandering around. He was the dude dressed as Stone Cold. He had an ET mask on and there's videos of him. Yeah. And he was just going around with the dead on perfect Stone Cold impression. And it was the funniest thing. And we both started dying laughing because it was just it was the weirdest, moment for just us because it wasn't on video. We weren't doing it for a camera or nothing. We just saw this dude and we were just dying laughing to ourselves. And it was just a reflection of how weird our lives have sort of been becoming internet media personalities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know what you mean. To be honest, guys, I think that's a beautiful way to end it. So what I will say is if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Obviously, check the boys out. They do great work over at Going in Raw. And I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.